number one ghetto boy. 248-632-PAIN. 24-hour hotline, you know? We specialize in helping auto accident victims. You feel me? Call right now. Hey. Car accidents, they ain't no fun. Know the people you can call for a hit and run. Specialize in helping auto accident victims. It don't matter, they help men, women, and children. Can't spare your wealth without your help. And they 24 hours, call them if you need help. Call for anything, it don't matter what's the reason. They helping everybody, they on deck if you need them. Say somebody hit your car and they kept going. Just call the hotline and we got help coming. They gon' pull right up like they left's coming. 248-632-PAIN, that's the best number. Yeah, make sure you call the hotline, we working 24 hours. 248-632-PAIN. You can't spend your wealth without your help, homeboy. You know? Hey, 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 hey. 248-632-PAIN, let's get it.
Good afternoon. And no, you're not seeing double. This is not a rerun. This is me again, your host, Helen B. with Attorneys R Us. And we are brought to you today by Attorneys R Us, who specialize in auto accidents and personal injuries, slip and falls, and a workman's comp, a whole bunch of things. And we'll definitely put you up to date on everything that they're involved in. I am here with Attorney Thomas Courts to my right, and to my left is Robert Harris. And we're going to pluck their brains today because I got a lot of good questions for them, a lot of good questions that I know that are going to help you guys out there in the event that you find yourself in different legal situations. I just really want to say, first of all, I think we're going to talk to you first, Mr. Harris, because I'm really excited that you're here with us today, and I don't know how often I'll have this opportunity, so I'm gonna pick your brain real quick.
Okay.
Okay, as far as courts are concerned, what is the role of the district court in criminal matters?
The district court determines the proper jurisdiction to hear a particular matter. So if it's traffic associated and the city ordinance is breached or the city ordinance is breached, then they know and they'll take that case and they'll make sure that the proper authority hears that case. That would be the district court. Or if it's something more serious, if it's a state offense, then that would be a matter that the district court can't do. And so then they would do what we call a bind over and send that case over to circuit court.
Okay, that sounds good. So now I know this is something that I really don't know technically. I know my father was an attorney, but I never really knew the difference between a misdemeanor or a felony, and I guess it's because I thought one was really, really bad and one was just kind of bad. That was my explanation. So can you explain what it actually is?
In a word, you're right.
Oh, okay.
One is a state offense, as I said earlier, and the other is a city offense. It's a breach of the ordinance.
Oh,
And
okay.
so a felony is a case where you could be sentenced from no time or perhaps a lifetime. Or if the legislature passes the law, you could even get the death penalty.
Wow.
The misdemeanor gives you a maximum of 93 days of jail time. However, there's an exception in the drunk driving. The district court, who can only give a person up to 93 days, with that one exception, the district court can give you a year
Oh, for drinking and driving. Okay.
of jail time.
Okay. Okay. Now, what are my Miranda rights? I hear this all the time, and that people waive their rights, or what are my rights?
The Miranda rights are not rights.
Wow.
They're wrongs.
Wow.
The Miranda basically speaks to you being able to speak in your own behalf, and that's wrong. Or you can refuse to speak or you can ask for your own attorney. When you are stopped by the police, usually in a traffic stop
Mm-hmm.
or an arrest, you owe them a duty of giving them your identification, and that identification should be correct.
Mm-hmm.
You do not have to tell them where you're going because that hasn't happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
But you may consider telling them where you're coming from.
Okay.
So if they say, well, where are you coming from? I'm coming from down the street back there. Where are you going? It's really none of their business. You haven't gotten there, and you couldn't have committed a crime where you're going because you haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, that makes sense.
But I always advise people, no matter, it's a double-edged sword here.
Mm-hmm.
The police, by rule of law, may lie to get their so-called man.
Right.
Right, courts? Yeah. But you are not allowed to lie to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes
Okay?
sense.
So a policeman may tell you, just tell me how many beers you had or what you did, and we can clear this little matter up right now. It's probably just a mistake. So you just give us your side of this, and the Miranda, what we're talking about, says that everything, anything you say can and will
And will.
be used against you
Right.
in the court of law. So you answer those questions at your own risk.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, once you have spoken and given your side of the story, you have limited my ability to get you off.
Right. Okay. So it's very important that you probably use your constitutional right to remain silent as much as possible.
Yes, so you're not exercising you're not talking, the Miranda, they say it's a right it's a right to talk to the police to clear it up. No,
Right.
that's wrong.
Right.
You do not do my job. Let me do my job, then we'll do fine.
Right. Okay, now say in the event a person is arrested, what is the arraignment process? What does that mean?
Actually, the officer does not have to give you that thing that you see on TV all the time. You have a right to remain silent. You have a right to your own attorney.
Right.
And if you can't afford one, one will be assigned to you. When you get to court on your arraignment, they'll give you a piece of paper that has all these rights outlined on them, so they make sure that you get it in writing.
Mm-hmm.
And the judge reads them to you and instructs your attorney to do the same. Have you signed that piece of paper to make sure that you've been apprised and given your rights?
Oh.
So the arraignment does a couple things. One, it makes sure that before this matter is completed, that goes any further, that you have been what we call Mirandized.
Oh, okay. I got
And secondly, they ensure that they have enough copies of your case so that your well-paid attorney doesn't happen to simply walk out with your folder and your case is gone.
you. Oh, I got you. I got you. Okay, so now we got this thing called the preliminary hearing. So what is that? It's so many different terms, and I'm sure that you all are not clear. So we're going to find out what these things are today.
Your preliminary hearing, and that could be an entire television show, just a preliminary hearing.
Wow.
But I see so many people duped, and I even see some attorneys try to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
The preliminary hearing is a two-pronged, forked hearing. Let's be clear. We have a constitutional right to be considered innocent until proven guilty. That is your right at trial.
Mm-hmm.
The preliminary exam or the preliminary hearing is not a trial. And you are presumed, they hate to say it, but I will risk my opinion. They assume you are guilty. A tie, if there is one before the judge, is always and must be handled favoring the prosecution. The evidence is brought in at a much lower, at just, well, is it plausible
Right.
that that could have happened?
Right.
And not beyond a reasoned doubt.
Right.
So when you go and you get a preliminary hearing, you're allowing testimony that would not be allowed at trial. That testimony is entered without the objections that your attorney could usually bring at trial. It's a hearing before your judge where you're presumed guilty by operation of advantages to the prosecution. And then it's not a trial, and it doesn't determine whether you did the crime or not.
Right.
Crazy.
Right.
So what does it do? What it does is actually rather common sense after all that craziness. After all that craziness, what it does is it asks the question, one, was there a crime that was probably, that perhaps committed? Okay, so we got a dead body. There's probably a crime committed.
Right.
The cookies are missing out of the cookie jar, and there's crumbs left in the jar. It's probably a crime committed.
Right.
So we have the, was there a crime committed? But the second prong of it asks the question whether you were closely associated enough with that transaction so that we can reasonably ask you the question, did you do it?
Oh, okay.
And if if there's a crime that probably could have been committed, and you stand close enough to that crime, where you could be reasonably asked, "Did you do it?" Then the preliminary exam is over. So if you get a yes, it was a crime, may have been committed. There's someone that pointed at you and says he committed a crime. Well, that's all they need.
Right.
So then the next question was, what type of crime was it, and so on and so forth. But basically what we're asking is, were you on vacation in China? Were you visiting relatives in Taiwan? Were you doing some work for the government in Japan? Because if you weren't in those places, if there was a shooting a block from here, and somebody dies, for instance, and they do a roundup, and they pick me up, within a block or two, and they say, well, there was a crime committed. We have a body, or we have injuries, or we have someone that's pointing the finger saying a crime was committed.
Right.
The second prong of it says, well, Attorney Harris, were you closely associated enough with that crime so that we can ask you, did you do it? And I said, well, I was a block away.
Right.
That's probably not enough to have them dismiss that case against me.
Okay. So that makes the difference.
So it's a proximity thing.
It's a
and
proximity.
I usually, unless my client is not there or it's pretty obvious that's not a crime, I don't hold a preliminary exam, because later in the proceedings, when I go and I ask for a sidebar with the court,
So you
and
can waive that.
yeah.
Okay.
So when I ask the court to, hey, give me a break here, and the judge is sitting there reading a preliminary exam in that little 10, 15 seconds that I get before him to really plead your case
Right.
in a personal way,
Right.
it really diminishes my power
Okay.
as an attorney to do that special job that you want done.
Now, I know you guys work together. Tom, you work with Robert as well. And I wanted to ask you some questions that came across on the email about the show. And a lot of people were asking about DUIs. Is that something that your firm handles as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So if a person were to get into a DUI, what would be your advice to them? What's the first thing that they should do, when they actually get pulled over by the police and they're speculated of drinking and driving?
So I'd say twofold. First, before you get in the car and drink, you want to just take an Uber. It's very cheap. It sounds obvious.
Good advice.
so many people routinely drink and drive. It's shocking. And I know a lot of people think, oh, I can handle that. Most people don't know that even if you don't blow over the limit, let's say that you've taken a couple sips and you forget to turn your blinker on, you can actually get a drinking related charge, because if you violate any law while you're drinking, you've now committed a crime, even if you're under the limit. So you really want to just pay for that Uber, because if not, it could have devastating effects on your criminal record. But assuming that you didn't do that and you are arrested, the first thing you want to do is follow Mr. Harris's advice and avail yourself of not speaking, take the Miranda, and wait, call a lawyer. Because at that point, you're facing a very, very serious charge.
Right. I don't know if that's a misdemeanor or a felony, but it's serious. I do know that. So I guess it could be both depending on the situation, right?
It kind of depending on the priors. Some people have a DUI that's a second or a third, and each time it's getting enhanced.
Right.
And the consequences are very, very serious.
Now,
Mr. Quartz,
Okay.
Attorney Quartz, do you mind if I just add one little thing?
Please.
If the police pull you over for a possible DUI, they offer you a breathalyzer. If you refuse the breathalyzer, then all bets are off, because according to statute, to refuse the breathalyzer is a guilty plea. So cooperate with the authorities, take the breathalyzer, but everything that Tom has told you is absolutely true. And
so that's
correct.
good advice to you that are ever in that situation. So definitely, I'll send you that email back, the person that sent it to me, if you're not watching the show. Also, let's talk a little bit about personal injury, because I know we've been on auto accidents a lot, but you also help with personal injuries, and that consists of slip and falls. I had a client that was bit by a dog, and I'm wondering if things like that, do you handle that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we handle anything where it's somebody else's fault, where you shouldn't have been injured, and due to their negligence you were injured, we would handle. And, a lot of these things are commonplace. A lot of us all have pets, so you think it's not very serious until you see a small child who was bit in the face. And these things are very serious matters. You need a lawyer right up front to start documenting your case, documenting injuries. For example, in that case, perhaps your injury starts to heal over time. Well, maybe you get to trial a year later and you didn't get a lawyer for 6 months. A lot of your injuries in your face have healed, but that doesn't mean they weren't there.
Right.
So having somebody who can document your case is very important.
So you probably, if I'm hearing you right, if in the event that you are in a situation, because it's probably going to happen on private property or maybe even public property, should they go to the hospital first, and then the next thing would be and assess their injuries and then contact an attorney?
Yeah, so a lot of people too, they try to tough it out. From a legal standpoint, whenever you think you need medical treatment, you should go get it, because the insurance companies, the first thing they're going to tell you is, oh, if you didn't go get medical care immediately, then you didn't need it. Now, we all know that a lot of us are stubborn, a lot of us are afraid of the bills, and therefore, there's people that think they're having a heart attack and won't go to the doctors. But the insurance company, if you don't go document it immediately, if you think you're injured, you should document it if you think you need medical care.
Now, this was a big question I got for you. Okay, so a lot of people have been in car accidents due to potholes and things with the city, and, their car, they've been in accidents because of these potholes, or their car has been damaged. What should they do in those situations?
There's a lot of highway safety statutes that could apply in certain circumstances, but even if you're in an auto accident without another driver, which a lot of people don't understand, even if you were to, through fault of your own, run into a tree, a wall, because you're swerving out of a pothole, you get in an accident on the side of the median, all of those things are covered under the No Fault Act, meaning you're entitled to medical benefits for the rest of your life if they relate to the injury, help around the house money if you need it, attendant care money if you need it, wage loss for up to 3 years at 85% of your lost wages if you need it. So there doesn't have to be another vehicle involved for it to trigger your benefits.
Yeah, that's good to know. Now, I got a question for both of you guys, and we'll start with you, Robert, if you can help us out here. A lot of people we know in the city of Detroit, we're just going to keep it real, and the surrounding areas, the suburbs too, they have suspended license and they are not insured. I try to tell people the importance of this over and over, but can you tell them from a criminal standpoint why they need to have valid driver's license when they operate a vehicle and why they need to be insured? What can happen to them if they're not?
Okay, so you're talking about someone who's driving
Dirty,
with,
like the dirtiest of dirty, not just suspended
okay,
license.
so that's
and
a person that's never had a license
or if
that's
they're
out there driving.
suspended, or yeah, if
Okay.
we'll just say they had it and they're suspended,
Okay.
and they don't have insurance, and then they get into a car accident. What can happen to them? Why is it so important for them to have those things?
Well, the authority of the district court judge is 93 days in jail. The Secretary of State has a system whereby even after the court clears you, they charge you all kind of outrageous
Driving
money.
responsibility fees.
Yes,
and things
outrageous
like that.
money to get back in line where you can where you can where you can drive again. Your car could be impounded, and then they have some crazy rates to make sure that you don't get it back.
And sometimes I don't think you can if your license is suspended. Sometimes they can confiscate your car.
Yes,
Can't you?
right. They can
Yeah.
confiscate it. And even if your license is good, if you've got drugs in the car, they can confiscate your
Right,
car.
right.
And I've seen them confiscate people's money. I've seen them confiscate homes, cars, everything. Okay, but we're not talking about drugs.
It's good to know, though. It's good to know.
But you're risking jail time and crazy fees. You'll wish you had paid car insurance when you see when that judge brings that hammer down and tell you how much it costs for his court costs, usually around $350 because you stood before the judge. And in many districts, because we're talking about district court, in many districts you're talking about fees as much as $1,000 for not having had insurance.
It's probably
And,
cheaper to get it then
and
with
the
all of those
suspension
fees.
of your license and the possibility of going to jail.
Going to jail. All of that is not really worth it, guys. You need to just try to work. And they have programs where you can pay on your license. Now, they have a lot of help and assistance to help you. So that's something that we need to know. Now, Thomas, can you tell us a little bit about no-fault insurance? Because a lot of people don't know the difference between no-fault and full coverage.
Yeah, so a lot of people without full coverage, again, get in an accident, they don't even bother to get a lawyer because they think they don't have the benefits. The no-fault statute's a mandatory requirement for every insurance policy sold. So, full coverage is more towards covering the physical damage to your car. But for actual damage to yourself, you're still entitled to every benefit that somebody with full coverage is, the medical benefits, the help around the house, the wage loss.
That is great to know. I get a lot of calls about driver's responsibility fees and things like that. And if my license are suspended, I hit someone, what does that mean? I mean, the best way to do, if you know you're doing something, regardless of whatever it is, if you need a license for that, even if driving, you need a license. If you're practicing a certain skill and you need a license, you need that as well. So whatever you need a license for, I just recommend that, and I'm sure these guys are with me, that you get that. We're here every week on Thursday to answer these questions for you. You're welcome to call. If you want to call, 1-844-TOM-FIGHTS. These gentlemen right here, along with their team, will be glad to answer any questions. They specialize, like I said, in auto, slip and fall, personal injuries, workman's comp. Help me out, Tom. Anything else?
Criminal law.
Criminal law.
I'm a former real estate
Yes, we got everything. I think we can cover all corners with these
broker.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so please contact us. You can always reach me at the Wellness Report at yahoo.com. You can reach me at 248-805-2000. We are here every Thursday at 1 o'clock. Once again, thank you so much for watching Attorneys Are Us. I'm your host, Helen, and we will see you next Thursday at 1. Have a great day.
Yeah, #1 ghetto boy. 248-632-PAIN. 24-hour hotline, you know? We specialize in helping auto accident victims. You feel me? Call right now. Hey. Car accidents, they ain't no fun. Know the people you can call for a hit and run. Specialize in helping auto accident victims. It don't matter, they help men, women, and children. Can't spare your wealth without your help. In they 24 hours, call them if you need help. Call for anything, it don't matter what's the reason. They helping everybody, they on deck if you need them. Say somebody hit your car and they kept going. Just call the hotline and we got help coming. They gon' pull right up like they left coming. 248-632-PAIN, that's the best number. Yeah, make sure you call the hotline, we working 24 hours. 248-632-PAIN. You can't spend your wealth without your help, homeboy. You know? Hey, 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 hey. 248-632-PAIN, let's get it.